Hello again and welcome to another Mordy and Glory Warhammer 40k video. In today's episode, I want to take you through step by step my first ever competitive Death Guard army. That's right, we will be taking the stinky boys, the smelly invaders, right into the heart of the meta. We're going to be taking them to their first ever tournament. And so, without further ado, let's not mess around any further. Let's mount up, roll out, and plague our way right into today's episode. Now, before we get into the list proper, I just want to regale you guys with a bit of background to this army. Don't worry, it will only take a few minutes. I will be deep diving the units in a moment. Now, I have been collecting Death Guard since the end of 9th edition, and I have to say, I've really fallen in love with the faction. Utter heresy, I know, get the Commissar, get the Inquisitor, but it's true. I found that they're just a really fun army, and they're just a very good palate cleanser. And I've also found them quite a comfy and natural fit as a Guard player. Whenever I've tried out a lot of elite armies in the past, such as Marines or Heretics, I don't know what it is, it's just they've not quite worked for me. But Death Guard, I feel like they're quite durable, they're quite elite, but you always seem to be able to cram enough into the list at the same time, whereas they can be quite forgiving as well. And they get loads of cool options, and they've got some pretty powerful rules. They've been good in 9th, they've had some powerful rules in 10th edition. Admittedly, they started off the edition a bit weak, but they've been good for a lot of it now. So if you're a Guard player that is looking for a bit of a palate cleanser, you're looking for some Marines, you're looking for something that plays a bit differently, so occasionally you can just have a bit of a reset and then go back to your Guard with even more enthusiasm, I can definitely recommend Death Guard as a faction. Now, like I said, I've been collecting and playing these guys towards the end of 9th, and I've been playing them fairly regularly in 10th edition, but I haven't taken them to a tournament yet, and I have been itching to do so. I've been jonesing to take them into that competitive environment, but the reason I haven't done so is I wanted to get a bit of practice, try and figure out some combos that I liked and that worked for me. But also, I wanted to make sure that I had the right units. I started off sort of my journey with Death Guard, focusing on taking as many Plague Marines as possible. But 10th edition has made it abundantly clear that you need some vehicles. You need to mechanize up. And so, over the last few months, I have been pushing hard to get some extra vehicles into the army, and I'm now at the stage where I feel like I've got enough transports where I can use my Plague Marines and also use them in a way that makes them feel fun. They're not just walking across the table getting blown up. They're actually making it in, and they are punching loyalists and Xenos to death.
Attention Guardsmen, the Commissariat has detected you have not yet liked this video. Do so immediately or else you will face the Emperor's wrath. And anyone who has not yet subscribed to the channel will be transferred to the penal battalions. That is all. Move out!
And so, after a few practice games and a little bit of time in the laboratory, in the Beat Lab, this is the list that I have come up with. And we'll start off over with the Armoured Corps. I know I always start with the Infantry Corps normally, but we're going to start with the Armoured Corps because, well, if I'm being heretics, I might as well completely throw tradition out of the window as well. And in this army, the vehicle that I've gone for is double Land Raider and 2 Rhinos. Now, I'm not going to lie. I don't think the double Land Raider meta is incoming. I would love if it was, but they're very big, they're very chunky, and they're quite hard to hide on a lot of boards. Now, especially if, like me, you are using these 30k Spartan models to represent your Land Raiders. Now, don't worry, guys, I have checked, and these are totally okay to use at the tournament that I am going to. I'm taking my Death Guard to a nice, friendly, local event, so they're not so strict on having things absolutely perfect. And at the end of the day, can your opponent tell what this is at a glance? They can tell it's a big fuck off tank. You tell them a Land Raider, they're not going to start confusing it for a Predator or anything like that. Also, it fits in with the aesthetic and the theme and the background lore of my army, which is these guys. They declare themselves heretics, popped into the warp. So yeah, let's go to Terra. Popped out 10,000 years later, going, we're here. Oh, something seems to have gone wrong with the warp journey. So I use these as my land raiders, and I have actually found them to be very valuable in this list because they're my main source of anti-tank. Each one of these land raiders is equipped with 2 sets of soul shatter las cannons for 4 las cannon shots, and then also you've got the twin plague heavy bolter, and I love the twin plague heavy bolter. It doesn't seem like it's a big deal because it's a plague heavy bolter. It has lethal hits, which means it actually occasionally does all right against vehicles as well. Plus the twin link means you could fish for those 6s against vehicles, and reliably you get 1 or 2 each time you fire this thing. You've also got the combi bolter and the havoc launcher on these things as well. Now, because I've got 2 of them, that means I actually have 8 las cannons, and they're hitting on 3s, and so they can punch surprisingly hard. And I haven't found, since I've gone down this double Land Raider route, and I've tried other things like having Hellbrutes with las cannons, I've tried taking some Predators with las cannons as well, but I have to say I've come back to the double Land Raider. They cover a lot of areas, they tick a lot of boxes. Not only are they very durable and tanky, which I like if I'm taking Death Guard, I want to feel tough. Not only that, but they're also transports, and the theme with this army is I'm going to blitzkrieg you. I drive up as close as possible to you, and I just start smelling all over you. And I need transports that can get there. And so rhinos are great, but sometimes you need something that can just balls to the wall it and just pop smoke, just drive down and just start taking those hits, dealing them back out, and getting your troops into the heart of the enemy. So not only are they anti-tank, but they're also durable, and as I just mentioned, they're transports as well. And they are a very powerful delivery system considering they have assault ramp. A lot of people sort of dismiss or overlook assault ramp, but honestly, it's nothing like moving your Land Raider 10 inches up the board, getting your guys out, and then just delivering 10 Plague Marines right into the heart of them. And Plague Marines, I think they're the best battle line infantry in the entire game right now. And I am including Imperial Guard in there as well. They are phenomenally powerful, very punchy, and able to punch upwards. But we'll get to the Plague Marines in a moment. So we've got 2 big Land Raiders to cover my long-range anti-tank and also be durable and also help with the transportation. Speaking of transports, I would love it if I could get a Land Raider for every single one of my units. Maybe I should actually play 30k, and then I probably could. But unfortunately, the points do start running out if you start putting every unit with a Land Raider in there. And so we do have to take some slightly more budget and efficient options. And this is where the rhinos come in. Rhinos, I've fallen in love with them. I love the Chimera. I love the Chimera. Don't get me wrong, guys. I do love it. But the Rhino, it's just so small and dinky. It can fit into those little cracks and crevices. It can fit behind those ruins that the Chimera can sometimes struggle to. And they're pretty fast, and they've got a firing deck, and they've got a surprising amount of firepower with the combi bolters and the firing deck, and then you've got the Havoc launcher as well. And they're not that durable, but if you don't kill them, they do start repairing the wounds up. They do self-repair a little bit. But I have to say, it's just how small, dinky, and fast they are. I find them a fantastic transport for my Marines. And at 75 points, they are definitely one of the cheaper ways of getting your guys up the board. In fact, I have fallen in love with rhinos so much that I am planning on getting another 4 for my army, giving me a total of 6. Because I think there's definitely something in going full Rhino rush with Death Guard. Getting loads of Plague Marines, spaffing them in loads of rhinos, and just going balls to the wall, hyper aggressive. Now that covers the vehicles in the list, but it doesn't cover all of the tanks, because we have got some very elite infantry in this army. I have taken a big old brick of Terminators, and controversial choice, I've taken Blight Lord Terminators over Death Shroud. Now the reason that's a big deal is because I've had multiple Death Guard players tell me that Blight Lords are not only the worst Death Guard Terminators, but are considered the worst Terminators in the game. And you know what? It is hard to disagree with them. I've started calling them Shite Lord Terminators. But I like them for a couple of reasons. Firstly, they're a bit cheaper than Death Shroud, man for man. And secondly, you can take them in big squads of 10. And there's just something weighty, something ballsy about taking a big brick of 10 Terminators. You know, that's an elite infantry choice with some chest hair on it. On a more serious note, I do like the Blight Lords for a couple of reasons. Firstly, they have ranged weapons, so they're not totally dependent on dropping down and choppy. True, the Death Shroud do have their wrist plague spewers, and they're pretty good, don't get me wrong, but sometimes you need to be able to fire across the board. And with there being an increase in guard players, and people started to take things like Basilisk, more than once I've been on the receiving end of my Terminators getting slowed down. And having a unit that has some long-ranged options is quite good. They're not as susceptible to being reduced to a crawl like your Death Shroud are. Now, having said all that, my Blight Lords are a little limited. I don't have the heavy weapons for them yet. So you'll see that all of these guys have got common bolters. That is what I am going to be running them with. It's a little tragic, I know, but don't worry, I am in the process of getting 2 autocannons, another plague spear, because I do have 1 plague spear, I've just not put it in this unit, and then also trying to get some of the flail guys to give me a bit of punch. But for now, we are taking 10 Blight Lords, all with their bubotic plague swords, and also we are going to be taking them with the combi bolters. But if I was going to say the main reason that I took these guys, it's because they're tough. At the end of the day, it's a 4-up save. T6, 4-up save, and they can drop in and start spamming out contagion left, right, and center. And that is thanks to my Chaos Lord. Now, this is a Chaos Lord in Terminator armor, and I have upgraded him with the enhancement, I believe it's the Living Plague. It allows him to extend his aura range, including his contagion range, by 3 inches. Now, that's a really big deal, because the Death Guard Lord in Terminator armor has an ability where every unit that is within contagion range starts taking mortal wounds on a 4+ at the end of the turn. And let me be clear here, it says the end of the turn, not your turn, not your opponent's turn, the turn. So it happens in both players' turns, and that can lead to a lot of mortal wounds being spammed out all over the place, especially considering that on turn 3, this guy has a contagion range of 12 inches. Whew. That's a long way. So what I like to do is basically put this guy in a big unit of Blight Lords. They drop down, and then I drop them right into the Maelstrom, right into the heart. And I do that turn 3, so my opponent's going to be in contagion range. And I always take the -1 to hit contagion. And then when my opponent tries to hit them, I'm like, Cloud of Flies, baby. So these guys, pretty much everything that shoots them tends to be at -1 to hit because of Cloud of Flies, and then -1 ballistic skill and weapon skill because of my contagion. That makes them really durable. It means that my opponent can't ignore them, because if he does, it's going to start impacting his whole army. I've literally walked these guys into like multiple gun lines, and they've gone down or been very, very badly injured, but they have for multiple turns made my opponent have terrible shooting, which has allowed the rest of my army to get into position and start dealing those hammer blows. And it's just a unit your opponent can't ignore, because at the end of the day, Blight Lords might not have the best damage output, but it's still 10 Terminators led by a Terminator Lord, and they're still spaffing out a lot of mortal wounds as well, thanks to that Lord. So is it a competitive combo? Probably not. Would I be better trying it with Death Shroud? Probably. Have I found it to be terrible and feel like I'm hamstringing myself? Absolutely not. In the multiple practice games that I've tried with this combo has emerged as being very, very effective. Now, these guys don't have a transport. Like I said, I do tend to deep strike them, but the units that do go in the transports are coming up next, and they are the Plague Marines. And we have got 4 units of Plague Marines, all of them 10 man strong, and all of them equipped identically. We have got in each unit 2 Plague Spewers. We've then got 2 Plasma Guns. We've got 2 Blight launchers. We've got 2 guys equipped with the heavy plague weapons, aka Plaguey Power Fists. And then we've got 1 guy in each squad equipped with a regular plague weapon. And then we've got the sergeant who's equipped with his plasma gun. Now, to differentiate between the sergeants and the regular plasma gunners, the sergeant has got the green plasma gun, and then the regular plasma gunners have got the Volkite launcher. I thought that was a cool way of getting lots of plasma into the army without it being confusing about who is who. Now, this is a lot of DACA. Some people like to go more melee with their Plague Marines, and that is definitely a good call and something I will be trying out. But I found that I quite like softening the enemy up with all of my firepower and then rushing in with what is still a hell of a lot of melee potential, because we've got multiple plaguey, powery, fisty weapons on these guys, and then each one of the regular Plague Marines is still, each one of the special weapon gunners, let's just say, is still coming with Plague Knives, and that is 3 attacks with lethal hits. Even though they're not completely maxed out for melee, I have to say I have never struggled in melee with these guys, and I sent them into some things that on paper they really shouldn't be able to deal with. I had a unit of Plague Marines go into combat with a full unit of 6 Bullgrim, and because they were able to soften them up first with all of their firepower, they actually ended up winning that fight. And that's pretty good. The Bullgrim should beat them because they've got the damage 2, the Plague Marines are all damage 1. But at the end of the day, those Bullgrims were only hitting on 4s because of the -1 weapon skill, and I was hitting them on 3s, loads of lethal hits. Bullgrims have only got a 4+ save when they've got those shields. So I have found that these Plague Marines have still got enough melee punch to be able to go toe-to-toe with some pretty good melee units out there, some things that they probably shouldn't be in combat with. Now, leading these Plague Marines, I have gone for the Tallymen. This is not the most common choice you see with Plague Marines. You often see the characters that give you strike first, and you've also got the character that lets you do grenades for free. But I quite like the Tallyman because he gives you a +1 to hit, both in melee and in combat. And let me just say, I have 3 squads with the Tallyman, right? They always seem to hit really well. I seem to roll a lot of 2s. I have the 1 squad without the Tallyman because you can only take through the rule of 3. And let me tell you, these guys feel like orc shooting in comparison. And you might say, well, Mordian, obviously you've got +1 to hit, but you wouldn't think it makes such difference. But my God, it makes all the difference in the world. You really, really notice it when you've got the 2 units side by side. And it just gives you insurance against having one of those terrible, crappy, awful rolls. And like I said, I don't know what it is about my Plague Marines, but I roll an insane number of 2s. So I really like having these 3 Tallymen. But overall, I find having this many Plague Marines gives me a really solid amount of objective control whilst supplementing and complementing my DACA and giving me plenty of close combat threat as well. It's a lot of Marines at the end of the day. It's 40 Plague Marines. It's nothing to turn your nose up at. But the last part of the list, we have a couple of cheeky Nurgling squads. Now, Nurglings are a great choice. You can ally them in with being Death Guard, and they're 40 points per unit, and they just drop down and do secondaries. They are essentially the Plague equivalent of taking something like a unit of Scions or taking a Cyclops demolition vehicle. They're actually pretty tough as well, considering they have 4 wounds per base, although they do only have a 6-up invulnerable save. But don't really care, they live or die, they drop down, deploy a teleport to home, get behind enemy lines, and that's about it. The only thing that's controversial about these little buggers is my army. You see, a little bit of background lore, only 30 seconds, a little bit of background lore. My guys, like I said, they jumped into the warp, they declared themselves heretics in the Horse Heresy, jumped into the warps to go to Siege of Terror, and then popped out A in the wrong place, and B 10,000 years late. So they're full-blood heretics. They're not going to pretend to be loyalists in any way, shape or form. But they've popped out and they've seen what's happened to a lot of the other Death Guard guys, and they're like, oof, that doesn't look great. Maybe we're more heretics or traitors than full-on believers in the god of Nurgle. And so they've not really used things like demon energies. It's kind of one of the things that I like about the aesthetic of the army with all the 30k stuff. You know, we've got Spartans and Rhinos. I often use like Sakara tanks to represent my Predators and stuff. It's cool, you know, but we haven't used a lot of things like cultists. We've not used a lot of things like demons, like plague modes, crawlers, that kind of stuff. And so having these Nurglings in the army, yes, it is the competitive option. It's a great way of doing your secondary objectives, but is this a line that is now being crossed by my Death Guard? Is this a new chapter in their lore? Or was it just Nurgle throwing some little minions alongside them to try and tempt them to his side? We'll have to see. In the developing lore. Little side note, I want to say a huge thank you to channel member and good friend Matty P, because he actually lent me these. These are not my Nurgling models. He lent them to me for the tournament, and yeah, they're going to be a vital tool in the toolbox. But that just about covers the whole list. 4 vehicles, big brick of Terminators, and a shed load of Plague Marines, seasoning it all with some Nurglings. Let me know what you think about the list down in the comment section. How would you change it and improve it? But also, let me know what other non-Imperial Guard factions you are excited to see on the channel. I obviously run a lot of Guard stuff. Yeah, that is the core faction of the channel, but I've been really enjoying trying things out like my Tyranids and now taking my Death Guard to a tournament as well. Have you got any other factions you'd like me to see take to the competitive scene? This is a bit of a meme list, and I'm happy to run meme lists for pretty much any faction. Just let me know what you're thinking down in that comment section. If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to smash that like button and also subscribe to never miss an episode. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian Glory Hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing, truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full-time without the incredible and generous support of my members, so thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier patrons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Alex Dengal, Bon Vert, Mad Larkin, Marcus Roberts, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, Try Again Bragg, John Stubbs, Nick Wolf, Diesel Fox, and August Barney. Seriously guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, see you guys next time.